Hello, CV Academics members and AMP Honors Program members, and welcome to another edition of What's on Tap. This episode is extremely special to me because I have the opportunity to talk to my younger brother, Stephen, about autism. And Stephen was diagnosed with autism years and years ago. So this is the first time my brother and I have ever talked about it in this way, and I'm really, really looking forward to it, and I hope you enjoy it as well. So without further ado, this is my younger brother, Stephen. How are you doing?
Hello,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So, Stephen, this interview is going to be shown on our website, on the AMP Honors Program website, and it's going to be seen by quite a few people. Does that sound okay to you?
Yes, that's perfectly okay with me.
Cool. All right, so let's start really, really simple, okay? What do you know about autism? Or is it something that, have you ever researched it on your own?
Well, from what I know about autism, I know for those people who are diagnosed with it, they have a hard time understanding and learning about new things. So, for example, let's say they're in school, they would have a hard time understanding what the teacher is talking about, and it would take a while for them to understand what they need to learn about in order to succeed. As well as for when I research the topic, I really don't do it normally, but I did it a few times for some school projects but during college. And it was really interesting from what I've learned and how things are doing.
Gotcha. So you just said that you were in college. Do you think a lot of people who have autism go to college?
Yes, I would say so. Like I was able to get through college okay, even though I learned differently, because there were many people who were able to help me out in order to get through this.
Gotcha. And who are those people?
That would include my mom, my dad, of course my brother, and some tutors I know as well.
Gotcha. Is there any, when you were in college, were there any classes that you liked more than others or that you understood better than others?
Let's see here. Sometimes, like there were some classes I had had a hard time understanding. It would be some economics classes, or for example, other business classes. There's a lot of detailed information that was hard to understand.
Gotcha. Um, did you know that you had autism? Or was there a specific time that you understood that you had autism?
Um, when I was younger, I never knew I had autism, and I never knew what it was. But around during my teenage years, somewhere between when I was in the age of 13 or 20, that's when my parents told me I had autism, telling me how I learn differently from others and how I do my own things or to get some other things done.
Like what?
Well, for example, like I have my own routines of doing things, like for school, like my own plans and to do a thing, and my own plans to get my homework done and to do some studying for upcoming quizzes or exams.
Gotcha. And so, okay, because I'm your brother, I know these things. Why don't you tell people what like your nightly routine is?
Um, by that, do you mean like when I get ready for bed or like,
Yeah.
well, whenever I get, every night when I get ready for bed, I always brush my teeth first. I always have to do flossing because the dentist told me to do so. Then after that, I always have to brush my retainers every night. And I do this every single day.
Nice. And how long does that take you?
Somewhat maybe about half an hour.
Gotcha.
Before I did the flossing, it usually just around 10 minutes or so.
So you floss for a while.
Yep.
Get every tooth?
Yep. Hey, I want to get good results from the dentist.
Hey, you gotta get good results from the dentist.
Exactly.
Um, after mom and dad told you you had autism, did you realize it, or did you not? Was it not something on your mind?
Well, it was never really on my mind because I never heard about it before. But once they told me more details about it, I started understanding more about it, and I never really had any problems. Just accepted it in my own way.
Gotcha. Very cool. And this is kind of an opinion question, so you can talk as much as you want, as little as you want, but I think it's important because, like I said, you and I have never talked about autism.
Right.
Like, we've never had the conversation about what it feels like to have autism from your point of view.
Right.
So, what is having autism like for you or in general?
Well, I wouldn't call it a weakness, sometimes there are some things that is helpful. For example, when I was in school, when it came to school projects, sometimes where I would work by myself rather than in groups, because for those who have autism, they prefer to be alone. And the reason why it helps me out, because sometimes when I need to be in groups with others, don't really do a good job being on schedule at times. Or for example, when we're supposed to meet up somewhere, like let's say our house, for example, they forget they have other plans and aren't able to make it at all. And that kind of pretty much frustrated me.
Yeah.
And so I don't mind being alone at times. And when it did come to group projects, if they were hard ones, didn't mind being in groups. So autism does help me out a bit. And also, the thing that I also kind of like about it, and this is my kind of personal opinion, because like with little routines or so, some people with autism like to do things more than once. For example, let's say you would like to watch a certain TV show, and once you finish, after you do some other shows, you like to do it again. I do that a lot just to keep me entertained.
Okay. So what shows, like what movies or shows do you like to watch over and over and over again?
Well, for example, when it first came out, I used to love watching the Rio movie a bunch of times, once every day.
I remember that. I remember you watched Rio every day for weeks.
Yeah, it was one of my favorite movies, and it still kind of is.
Is it because the birds blew?
Yeah, and it's just a good story.
It is a good story. I can't disagree with you there. Um, so one thing you said that I kind of wanted to see if you could talk more on
Okay,
is that people with autism um, like having routines.
right.
What what else do people with autism like? And that's different for everybody. But do you know of anything else that's pretty consistent like that?
Well, that's a good question. Like, I haven't really met that many people with autism, but from what I've done with my research, they always do their own kind of routines, like different from mine, but they all have their own kind of style.
Gotcha.
So it's hard to put into details from what I read, but like I said, everyone has their own style with it.
Gotcha. Um, and then well, it's a little bit different now, but you were working in a warehouse, right?
Correct.
What were you doing?
Um, well, I always did day when I went in, they maybe do things differently. For one thing, I would help out with their promotion programs, like packing up supplies in boxes for ready for shipment, get packed up bottle caps. I had to make packs of 100 of them, and a lot of other things like work on the computer or checking inventory.
Gotcha.
Yeah, different each day. And I guess that's another thing that's helpful with another thing about with autism about being alone. Because sometimes, rather than being a big group, it is much faster if you do working solo at times because you can get the job done. That way, you won't get distracted by talking with others.
Oh, okay. I never thought of it that way. Okay, last one.
Right.
If you could tell everyone just one or two things about autism and people who have autism, what would you say?
Well, if I would meet someone who has autism, I would tell them don't be upset about it. It doesn't matter if you learn things differently or if you have your own style. Just accept it, and things won't go wrong. And your friends will understand what you're saying, and maybe they will try to help you get through these things.
Okay. And,
Especially,
oh, sorry.
especially with the hard times that's going on right now with COVID and quarantine.
Yeah. And
Because,
what'd you
I'm
say?
Well, because with everything going on, the times are tough. So people would need some more help, especially when businesses are starting to open back up.
There you go. Now, what if you were talking to someone who didn't have autism? What would
Well, if I met someone who didn't have it, like let's say if it was someone new, and if we were talking to each other and they were telling me information that I wouldn't understand about, I would explain to them why I wouldn't understand it and try to explain to them how I learned things differently and ask them to explain it better for me to understand it.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, thanks, buddy.
You're welcome.
Pretty easy, right?
That's correct.
What do you got the rest of the day?
Well, pretty much just hanging out, doing my own things, my chillaxing time.
Love that. All right. Well, I love you and thanks for your help.
You're welcome. Happy to be of help. Love you, man.
Love you too.